Alright guys, welcome back to Urge. We're moving on in the subclass series onto the Graviturgy Wizard. Right. This is a new subclass from the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, the third and final of the new book. So if you're new to the channel or to the subclass series, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the abilities gained in the subclass, and then we're going to rate the roleplay value, combat value, and overall class synergy based on how these abilities are going to mechanically increase the potential of the base class. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right into this new subclass.
Alright, starting out. Level 2, you get Adjust Density. So, as an action, you can magically alter the weight of one object within 30 feet of you. The object or creature must be large or smaller. The target's weight is halved or doubled for up to 1 minute or until your concentration's in. So essentially, you're using your spell concentration to hold on to this ability. While the weight of the creature is halved, its movement speed is increased by 10 feet, can jump twice as far, and has a disadvantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. The opposite is the same for... if you make it bigger, if you make it larger, make it heavier, it gets reduced movement speed 10 feet, but it has advantage on strength checks and saving throws. So, either or. And upon reaching level 10, you can now affect objects up to huge or smaller, creatures or objects, huge or small. And there is no limit to how many times you can use this. Right. So, I think it can be used in and out of combat, both. Mm-hmm. Being able to affect strength checks and saving throws for good and for bad at will. Definitely has some uses on there, but it does take your concentration as far as if you try to use it in combat anyway. At level 6, you get Gravity Well. You learn how to manipulate gravity around a living being whenever you cast a spell on a creature. I'm going to explain this because it took me 6 minutes of reading it to figure out what this meant. Whenever you cast a spell on a creature, you can move the target 5 feet to an unoccupied space of choice. If the target is willing to move, the spell hits with an attack, or if it fails a saving throw against the spell. So you can actually target a friendly creature, ally with the spell, even just prestidigitation, for example, and then pull them 5 feet, push them 5 feet, if they're willing to move. Right. Or if you actually hit a creature with a spell attack, or if they fail a saving throw against the spell, you can also move them any direction.
Against their will.
Against their will. So it's just the way it was kind of broken up with commas, it was kind of confusing. It took me a good long while to figure that out. It's one of those days. Sorry. But, so either you give a chance essentially to push and pull stuff, mostly at will, with any spell you cast.
Then at level 10, we have Violent Attraction. Another creature you can see within 60 feet of you hits with a weapon attack. You can use your reaction to increase the attack's velocity, causing the attack's target to take an extra D10 damage of the weapon's type. Alternatively, if the creature is within 60 feet and takes fall damage, you can use reaction to increase the fall damage by 2d10. And you can use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So basically, you're just going to increase damage a little bit for allies attacking with weapons. Or if, with gravity being your thing, you get spells like reverse gravity and stuff, things that are making things fall or whatever, you can add a little bit extra damage on there using your reaction to do so, just 2d10. Then lastly, we have Event Horizon at level 14. As an action, you can magically emit a powerful field of gravitational energy for 1 minute or until your concentration ends. For the duration, when a creature hostile starts its turn within 30 feet of you, it must make a strength saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail, it takes 2d10 force damage, and its speed is reduced to 0 until the start of its next turn. On a success, it takes half as much damage, and every foot it moves this turn costs 2 extra feet of movement. So it's better than difficult terrain because it's going to use 3 feet of movement for every foot of movement total, versus 2 for everyone. Yep. Once you use this feature, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest, or until you use a spell slot of 3rd level or lower or higher to use it. So you can use it multiple times a day. If you want to expend 3rd level spell slots or higher to do so, kind of just giving you a way to, being a wizard, you're kind of squishy to keep people away from you. It's pretty good use because even if they succeed, they're still going to have a much harder time trying to get to you. Right. So definitely interesting on that side. But with that being said, those are the main abilities gained from the subclass. We'll move straight into the rating section. And first up, we have the roleplay value. Again, disclaimer as always. When we're talking about roleplay value, we're talking about interacting with the world, interacting with NPCs, non-combat encounters, avoiding combat scenarios, things like that. We're going to be anticipating you factoring in your backstory, your lore, your class fantasy, acting out your spells and your actions and all that fun stuff that's already incorporated on your side of things. On the scoring section, we're looking purely at a mechanical standpoint from what the abilities are going to increase on your role-playing potential from, a mechanical standpoint from the abilities. So with this, there's not a whole lot going on with the RP side of things. The biggest thing is going to be the adjust density, which is going to, give the disadvantage or advantage on strength checks and things like that. in the movement speed as well that can be associated with that. But pretty much everything else is pretty much combat based. So we went ahead and gave it a 2 out of 5 for the RP side, just again because most of the abilities are combat based and they're not going to be particularly helpful in non-combat scenarios. Whereas the Adjust Density does have some pretty good uses when it is available, though it is strength checks, which are not super common.
Well, as with most of these, if one is lacking in the one field, it's probably more focused on the other, and that's definitely the case with here. Being more focused on the combat is every ability can even be tied to combat. Even the Adjust Density, having the ability to affect strength saving throws both for the good and the bad, can be very, very useful in combat. Especially if you've got a barbarian who wants to knock stuff down, or a fighter who wants to knock stuff down, then start beating on it. You can have them have disadvantage on strength saving throws, making them light, making them easier to knock down or pushed around, things like that. Being able to move creatures, not necessarily super helpful. But still can be combat related. You could move a friend out of danger, and then so that they can get away from opportunity attacks because they're not choosing to move, even though they're willing for you.
Yeah.
They're willing for you to move them, so you can get them out of trouble. They can run away without having to have opportunity attacks. Really, the best use of that as far as to be in combat, just pushing. Or it's anything pushing somebody away from you. You can hit them with a spell attack and push them away from you, so you can get out of trouble.
Or
most of
push something on a cliff, kind of thing.
Yeah, or in the best scenario, that's the absolute ideal use for it.
Right,
as we found out.
But it's only 5 foot.
Yeah, we found out in our one shot recently, as we were able to do that twice. Yeah. Knock evil dogs off the side of the bridge. But here or there. Of course, Violent Attraction, being able to add extra damage to allies' weapon attacks, and more importantly, being able to add extra fall damage. Would be much better if you could do this more often.
Yeah.
Or if it was just more damage and you could do it less often. I think being able to do more burst damage and just throwing an extra D10 in there 5 times would be better. I would, if it was me, if I wanted to throw a tweak in at this point, I would maybe anytime you could, maybe they would let you do it anytime you did a spell with force damage. You could just do maybe just an extra D6 of damage. Anytime you do any kind of a force-based spell. That would make this a little bit more consistent. Maybe toss it around a little bit. That's just just popped into my head there. And of course, Event Horizon, definitely the most interesting ability. Being able to just throw in a little mini black hole. I mean, that's where Event Horizon comes from. Mm-hmm. Nice, clever thinking. But being able to essentially use a concentration spell to suck people into a spot, to keep them away from you, put them in a spot so people can beat on them because it says things that are hostile to you.
Right.
So you could pull all the enemies into one spot and let yourself or every other caster fireball, 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 and they're all right there grouped together. Right. Or of course, because I think that way is there's this nice little patch of thorns over here. Let's get them stuck in there and they can't get out. Or there's a cliff right there. Let's just suck everybody toward the cliff edge and then. Oh, I lost concentration. My bad, guys. Down the hole we go.
And then as they hit the ground, you add 2d10.
Right. So definitely more combat focused, but because the numbers of Violent Attraction aren't great. Same thing with Event Horizon. Not a lot of great damage numbers. You're limited to how many times you can do it. Event Horizon is once per day, unless you want to spend a level 3 spell slot or higher on it. Violent Attraction again is limited 5 times a day. Gravity Well, you're only just pushing people 5 feet.
Right.
Not incredibly super amazing. And the Adjust Density is cool, being able to adjust with the strength saving throws. But again, not as helpful if it was, dexterity saving throws.
Right.
Or other wisdom saving throws in combat. Yeah. So we ended up going with a 3.5 on the combat side of things. The one thing I will have to mention is probably what we thought maybe going higher with this, but definitely helped get it over the 3 threshold, is the spell book that this thing gets. We're going to make a whole other video on the spells.
Yes.
But just to give a general idea, the lower level spells are interesting, do some cool, fun stuff with Graviturgy Magic, but the high-end spells, especially the level 8, the level 9, and the level 6, I mean, really the top 3, could easily make a case for one of the top 2 or 3 spells at that level in all of 5e.
Very strong.
They're absolute combat enders at their level at that point.
And I think one thing to mention too, if you're not familiar with how the new spells in this book, basically there's a whole new type of magic, which is Dunamancy, and the 2 new subclasses for the wizard gain access to certain spells from this list that other spellcasters are not allowed or not supposed to have access to. It says DMs can grant these spells as rewards to their other spellcasters.
Because that's how silly they are.
It gives you an idea as to how strong they are to say that these are specifically supposed to be for these subclasses. So they're kind of included in the subclasses themselves as special spells available only to these subclasses, which is pretty cool and unique as well. But these spells, we'll go over them in another video, but a lot of them are having to do with gravity, obviously. Pulling things in, making difficult terrain while pulling things in, doing damage every turn while they're pulled in difficult terrain. Pretty ridiculous.
Having their speed reduced to 0 while they're restrained so they can take more damage to start their next turn.
And if they die, they're disintegrated, stuff like that. Pretty strong.
Annihilated, I think, is one of the other ones.
Yeah, the level 9 one, yeah. So we'll go over those in another video, but again, spells on the very high end, abilities on the lower end, kind of average out around 3.5.
Yeah.
Then lastly, we have the overall class synergy. The main things with Wizard, you're going to have your at-will spells that you can cast first and second level. Not a whole lot going on here on that side of things. And then you also have your signature spell. You get a third level spell that you can cast once a day or whatever. Again, not very much going on here with that. You have your Arcane Tradition, and your spellcasting is obviously your big thing. There's not really a whole lot of abilities going to be adding to your spellcasting. The only thing that really is going to be, your Gravity Well. You can push things 5 feet here and there. I mean, it gives you some utility in certain circumstances. It can be really good.
Violent Attraction does give you a use of your reaction.
Right.
Which normally as a wizard, all you're doing with your reaction is going to be...
Shield.
Or Counterspell. Shield or Counterspell? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, I mean, you do have a chance to at least add some extra damage if you feel like it might make the difference in getting something knocked out quickly. So that is helpful. Or, making something... Your gravity-based spells, being able to make something take some extra just damage to kind of thematically buff yourself. That does help, but ultimately we went with a 3 out of 5, a nice middle ground, because it definitely doesn't inhibit what a baseline wizard does.
Right.
Gives a little bit of extra help, but nothing super crazy.
Yeah.
The lower end spells aren't so good that you probably would pick those over some other just regular wizard spells for your signature spells, spell mastery stuff. Not the case with the other wizard subclass that's in here. Gets free uses of luck and whatnot.
Yeah.
But all in all, of the two, because if you watch these in order, you've seen the Chronergy one before. This one I think is maybe more interesting flavor wise.
Yeah.
But maybe isn't as impactful in the game. Just its baseline abilities. Right. Maybe a more creative person can do a lot of fun things with this.
Right.
Like I could see some creative. Absolute nut of a mastermind person doing all kinds of shenanigans with this subclass.
Yeah, you can definitely do some wombo combos, especially with dealing with gravity and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff you can do, especially if you have multiple casters in your class, or in your party, and you have all these spells that pull stuff together, and then you have someone else lay down the bomb on everybody.
Yeah,
you can do some really cool stuff.
I'm gonna save my little combo I created from when we do the spell video because it's a bit silly.
Yeah,
but. That'll do it for us here on this subclass review of the Graviturgy Mage, or Graviturgy Wizard in the new Wildemount book.
Yes.
So make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the bell notifications. Let us know what you think. Always give us stories in the comments. We love hearing them. As far as what you think about this subclass, the book in general, other things you want to hear us talk about from the book, any shenanigans you've come across, interesting wombo combos of spells yourself. Because I always love testing him and see what his reaction is when I do something he's not ready for come campaign time.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for us, guys. As always, thanks for watching.